Hey Birchouse friends, welcome back. So this week's question comes from our friend Andrew, who asks, Hey Birchouse, what is the easiest wood to work with, and what is the hardest, and why? This is kind of a loaded question and one that we can take a lot of different avenues to explore. So I'm going to keep this very concise. Um, and some of this is purely uh, common knowledge stuff in woodworking, and some of it is opinion based. But I think people tend to think that when we talk about what wood is easy to work with, people are like, "Well, hardwoods would be harder to work with, and softwoods would be easier." And there's some truth to that. But when we're talking about softwoods, we're talking about things like pine, like cedar, or basswood, balsam, things of that nature. And yeah, they're softer and easier to work. Um, but they can bring their own issues to the table. I tend to think that softwoods are less forgiving when you make a mistake. When you're working with like hardwood, you're taking off little bits at a time. It's a little easier to gradually get into the shape you want. Where if you make a mistake with this, if you go you gouge too deep or you cut too deep, it's done. You've cut into it, and you're gonna have to work through the mistake you've made. I think that hardwoods tend to be a little more forgiving. Um, some softwoods you'll have issues with like tear out. So if you're maybe planing them, um, or carving on them, maybe you're trying to get a nice smooth cut, and you get a chunk of wood taken out with that cut. It kind of rips away or tears away. It's called tear out. And I think you can get that on softwoods, maybe a little more than hardwoods. When you're working with hardwoods, they have a different set of issues they bring to the table. They're harder, so they are literally harder to work. It's harder to carve into them. You may have to take way more passes at cutting away material or carving away material as you shape the wood. If you're planing a piece of wood for, say, like an axe handle, you're going to have to do a lot more strokes with that planer to get the wood material pulled away. So it can take more time. It can be harder to get the shape you desire if you're like doing a carving. So hardwoods bring their own set of issues to the table. On top of that, we also have to look at not only the hardness or softness of wood, quote unquote, we also have to look at the grain pattern of wood. And so wood comes in 3 grain patterns: straight grain, wavy grain, and irregular grain. Generally speaking, straight grain is the easiest to work with wavy grain being a little harder, and then irregular grains being much harder. With irregular grains, when you're working it, the grain is going wherever it wants to go, and so you're having to constantly readjust how you're working that piece of wood to accommodate that. So what are some of my favorite woods to work with? I like things like cherry. Not too hard, has a nice straight grain, and by the way, cherry is like one of my favorite woods ever. It just looks so pretty. I like things like black locust, hackberry, which tends to be a little softer, and I think looks really handsome when it's all finished up. I really like working with ash, and that might just be Stockholm Syndrome because so much of what we make is made with ash. So many historical arms and armor have ash involved in their builds. So I like working with ash quite a bit. And then on top of all of the things I previously mentioned, there's also one other consideration, and that is personal preference. Osage orange tends to be kind of hard. I really, really like working with Osage orange. I really like working with honey locust. And so, those aren't necessarily what some people would consider to be easy woods to work with, but I really enjoy working with them, and I really enjoy the finished product. So when you're looking at what is the easiest and hardest woods to work with, you're looking at softness and hardness, you're looking at the grain pattern, and you're looking at personal preference. Andrew, that was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I'm going to draw a question for next week. And next week's question is actually one I'm saving. I've actually been saving a series of questions. I have a guest I'm hoping late June to have on that's going to answer a series of questions with me. So let's draw another question. By the way, this question was from Jessica Green. So Jessica, your question is going to get answered. It's being compiled with a bunch of other questions on a similar topic. Let's see here. Next week's question will come from Brian Murphy. So Brian will answer this question next week. If you ever have a question for Birchouse, comment below with "Hey Birchouse," ask, and we'll answer it in a future video. In the meantime, we'll see you all next Wednesday.
Welcome to Birchouse, where history meets art. We do